So would you guys like to introduce yourselves? Don't feel pressure to go in any particular order, but
I'll start since I'm on the end. So my name is Andy Shermanek. I am a sixth-year graduate student in the cell and molecular biology program, and I study inner ear development, and I actually am working over at the BSRB, which is that way.
And I'm Tim McKay. I'm a professor of physics here, and my research is in cosmology. So I study the large-scale structure of the universe, of the distribution of matter in the universe. But I have connections to all of you in this class too, because this class is sort of my fault. One way or another. About 5 years ago, we started creating it. I started creating it, and now here it is. So we can talk about that kind of stuff. We can talk about research. We can talk about anything you want. That's the point of this discussion, I think.
My name's Dan Leventhal. I am a neurologist over in the hospital, but I do mostly basic neuroscience now, crossover here in the lab that Rohit's working in. And so I was actually a physics major, and most of what I do right now is electrophysiology, trying to understand how the parts of the brain work and don't work in certain neurologic diseases.
Okay. So maybe you guys want to say, or you guys want to say what you want to do. What would you like to talk about?
so I mean, all the students have prepared questions to ask you, so
Great.
it can just basically be a free Q&A session. If you guys want to just give more, if you want to give more detailed answers or more detailed background on any part of what you do, feel free to do that whenever. So I guess questions are open.
I have a question about your ROTSE project.
ROTC, yeah.
I was wondering how exactly robotics came into play with that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one of the observational projects that I work on. So I'm an observational scientist. That means I get to find out how things really are sometimes. Theoretical scientists like to sit around and imagine how things might be, and I get to find out how they really are. In a certain sense, if you do good experiments, you find out answers that aren't wrong. And they're never wrong after you find them out. Find out an answer. It's really the truth. It doesn't change. That's kind of fun. That's one thing I like. Anyway, so this experiment, the robotic optical transient search experiment, is aimed to look at a very unusual thing in astronomy. Most things in astronomy are completely stable. The sky we see tonight is almost the same sky that the Greeks saw. It just doesn't change very fast. So a lot of astronomy goes after looking at something in grave detail, but doesn't have to rush. The galaxy's going to be there tomorrow. There are some things that happen in the sky, though, that change, that are transient, don't last. And a good example is the brief period of time at the end of the life of a star when it runs out of fuel, collapses, and the various things happen. And sometimes one of the things that happens is, in the process of collapse, there's an explosion that occurs. Energy gets very concentrated when it collapses, and that concentrated energy then pushes things out. Exploding stars at the end of their life. Those last a short period of time. In fact, certain parts of their explosions last tens of seconds. Very short. So if you want to look at those things, you have to have telescopes that are always ready to go. You never know when they're going to happen or where, so you have to be absolutely ready. And you can imagine doing that with graduate students and having them just be really super patient and wait by the keyboard to type in. But they're not that good at that, actually. They fall asleep, and they play video games and stuff. So to study these exploding stars, we decided we would build a set of robotic instruments that totally run themselves. The way they work is that there are satellites in space, in particular a couple of NASA satellites, that detect gamma rays from these exploding stars. And that makes it easier to detect such an exploding star because normally the sky hardly has any gamma rays coming from it. When one of these goes off, it's suddenly the brightest thing in the sky. So you could sort of imagine kind of being out at night, you look around, there's nothing really in the sky, something lights up, it's really easy to spot, right? So they can spot where it is in the sky very easily from the satellite. Then they send a signal to the ground, which then goes out over the internet to our telescopes. And in a few seconds, our telescopes steer to that spot and start taking pictures. When that happens, they send a page to us. So my phone vibrates, and I get it out, and it says what's going on. But the telescope's already taking pictures of whatever it is that's happening. So it actually does all the work. We then just come and look and see what it saw. By making it a robot, it never sleeps. It's always ready. It responds really quickly. It doesn't get tired, all that kind of stuff. And we spread these robots around the planet so that whenever one happens, you have a chance of seeing it. So we have a telescope in Turkey and one in Texas and one in Namibia, southern Africa, and in Australia. So there's 2 in the southern hemisphere, 2 in the northern hemisphere, and they go all the way around the globe, so that there's always one in the dark as the Earth turns. And so we say that the sun never rises on the Rotsian. So that's what it does. It sits around waiting for things to happen. And we've been doing this for quite a number of years. We see many such things happen. They're all different one from the other. And so the main thing we've learned by seeing the first large number of them that anyone had ever seen is that none of them look the same as the others. So we're in an interesting state where we've measured all kinds of stuff, learned a lot that we didn't know, and we still have no idea really what's going on. But we know more than we now know, range. So that's what those things are about. And that's one of the research projects that I work on.
Cool. Thanks.
Something else?
So, in addition to that, I noticed on the explanation online about the research you're doing, you said the students that you're working with, obtain their data of galaxy clusters using the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. Is that similar to what you just described, or is that something?
It's a little different. It's a different project. So, what the Sloan Digital Sky Survey is, it's the main thing I worked on for the last 20 years, and it's done now. Although we're still learning things from the data, we finished taking the data some years ago. So it was a project to comprehensively map the sky, and to do it in a way which would be fully computerized from the beginning to the end. And it was the first project like this of its kind. And it was, its goal was to conduct kind of a census of galaxies, to look at a very large number of them in a very systematic way, so that you could really understand the population of galaxies throughout the universe. If you wanted to do this with people, you would have to be very careful about how you select them and make sure that you measure them well and you really know everything about them. So we wanted to do that with galaxies. So we built a custom purpose telescope and put it in southern New Mexico, and I spent a bunch of time living there when we were turning it on and making it work. And then we used it for 5 years, and all it would do is take pictures, one picture after another of the sky, marching across the sky, trying to get the most comprehensive picture of the sky that we've ever had. We measured in reasonable detail something like 100 million galaxies and produced a catalog of them. A feature of that catalog that I think is important for all kinds of science is that it's completely public. So we were funded to make these measurements, but a big part of why we were funded to do it was that we would give the data away to everyone, including you and you. You could go download it tonight if you want, all the information that we gathered. That's something that's being asked of science more and more as comprehensive data sets like this are being made, things like the Human Genome Project. So as genomes get sequenced, there's a lot of questions you can answer with them about different diseases or whatever. And once they're done, what should be done with that data is that it should be shared with everyone so that everyone can use it to answer all kinds of questions. And the Sloan survey was actually a really great early example